Okay, here we go. I'll call to order this District of Clearwater regular council meeting for Tuesday, January 4th at 2 p.m. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Sim people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. I believe we have a couple late items. Is that correct? Is that on this agenda or?
One is for this agenda, which is an item that can go within the Sierra report from MIABC. And the other one is adding HR as an in-camera item for today.
Okay, good. So that will just be in your CAO report. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of adopt the agenda as presented? Moved by Councillor Haring, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor, everybody raise your hands. We barely got quorum. There we go. Thank you. That is passed. Adoption of the minutes of the December 7th meeting. It's been a while. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Frizzle, second by Councillor Haring. All those in favor. Something about errors and omissions that I was supposed to mention. Anyways, that passes. Moving on to item 10, proposed notice on title. I believe this is a section 57. Is there anybody speaking to this today?
The last I checked, which was yesterday, we did not have anyone of the parties who will be presenting today. No.
Okay.
I could speak to that if.
Yeah, sure. If you wish to, Mr. Penny, until I get to that page on my agenda.
We have not yet been able to contact the property owner. We sent a registered mail to the property, but it's not where they live, and the address we had on file was out of date. But I've talked to the building officer. She had an email for her, and she also had a different address. So just confirming that address is correct, and then yeah.
So at this point, we do have a recommendation that a notice pursuant to section 57 of the community charter be filed on the land titles office against title of lot B, KAP 22877, DL 1682, Countless Yale Division of Yale. But do we want to put this off for another meeting until this person is contacted?
Sorry, I was going to say I did contact the building inspector, and she said that would be appropriate.
Okay, so let's just table this for now till the next meeting. Okay, it's always good to have good process, especially when it comes to section 57s. We'll go from there. So that moves on to mayor's report. It's been a month, a lot of sort of advocacy phone calls and stuff behind the scenes, but not really much going on as far as official town business. A few emails and calls about TELUS outage that you've probably been hearing about up in the canyon, up in the upper Clearwater Valley. MLA Millibar, the MP is interested in that one, and it's gone to the media across the region anyway. So the media is trying to get some action on that from TELUS as well, or at least a proper response. And then the only other two things that I've been watching, as I'm sure all of you have, is the discussion around property tax assessments. Mine went up $102,000 in 1 year. To put that in perspective, 18 years ago, I paid $102,000 for the whole place. So that's kind of scary. And then obviously what's going on with Omicron as well is of great concern. I do know people that have personally been infected with it, and it is not an easy pass. It is not fun at all for some people, and those are double vaccinated human beings. And that's it for mine anyways. Councillor Banford is off. Councillor Frizzle, you are up next.
Okay, here I am. Happy New Year, everyone. Just wanted to report that on December 16th, as acting mayor, I attended the Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation with Minister Osborne and Minister Rankin, and had a good discussion with, I think there was like 30 mayors and councillors on that meeting. It was quite interesting, and how different perspectives and ways people are dealing with dealing with it in their communities. I also, at the same day, attended a vaccine meeting. And at that meeting, I just went back on my notes and it said there was 3 cases of Omicron in the Interior Health that day. So how times have changed in just 2 weeks. I also attended the Seniors Advocate report on BC seniors abuse and neglect. And the big report was on how reporting is so difficult. 48% of people in BC don't even know how to report if they see elder abuse. And they don't know where to report, and so they tend to not report. So there is a new system that they're working on to put in place, that there'll be one number, there'll be a big public reporting on how to do it. So I'm excited about that, because that's always been a problem. People didn't know where to go to first. I also delivered Christmas Eve dinners, and that was quite an exciting day. It was a fun day, and I met up with a lot of people. And Shelley, I do have an envelope here with you with some donations. So I think and also we had the seniors luncheon. It was a pickup lunch, and I had 60 people show up for the lunch pickup and go home with a bag with soup and sandwiches and goodies in a bag. So it was a fun December, and that's my report.
Excellent. That report on seniors abuse and how to report it, I think would be a great paragraph or 3 for the next newsletter.
So, yeah.
So, yeah. Moving on to Councillor Haring.
Yeah, not much to update over the holidays, but one thing I wanted to flag is I really have noticed a change in the discourse about what's going on around town. I've noticed kind of a little more negative tone popping out of the info board. Generally, people seem like they're getting frustrated with, I think the assessments are a big part of that, but also road maintenance, the typical winter stuff. I think we're kind of hitting a fatigue point, and we might have to go on the offensive with some messaging on some of this stuff. It's clear that a lot of folks in town don't actually know what we're responsible for, and we're catching some flack for that. So I'm not sure how we can address that. But yeah, that's all I wanted to bring up.
Yep, I'm hearing the same thing, and I agree. Councillor Mackenzie is away. Councillor Sim.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope it was great. Glad to see everybody. Just a few things for December, probably, as Councillor Frizzle alluded to, the cooking for all those people was probably the biggest thing, and I want to thank those of you who were able to help. It was a lot of fun on many, many different levels. First of all, it's always a great opportunity to do a pulse check with the people who call in and check, and just finding out the various needs within the community. I echo what Councillor Frizzle is saying about certainly listening to our seniors. And as the world continues to move to an online platform, how neglected that part of our community feels, and that it becomes very overwhelming, and that sense of isolation, the ceiling seems a bit lower on that one. Some of the great things about that particular dinner is how many volunteers came out. That was marvelous, and new people to the community who had been looking for ways to kind of participate and meet new people. That was great, and I just can't express the gratitude for how many people came forward to volunteer, to donate money, to deliver all of it. I always keep my fingers crossed because I'm a terrible cook, and I think, oh my gosh, what if it's a bad meal? But with such good health, people actually seem to really enjoy it. And it was a wonderful opportunity to work with Evergreen Acres, as well as Joanna from Yellowhead, and so many. Working in that kitchen and with the various people of the organizations, and the weaving of the conversations was exciting, and how much we were able to extend the resources. Because of the generosity, we've got some money left over, and I look forward to working with Councillor Frizzle to see how that might work forward for another meal or something. So keeping that playbook moving forward. Exciting that the ski hill is now open. It would have been great to open this week, thanks to schools not necessarily being open to everybody, but it's volunteer ski hill. There's only so much people can do. which is great. And I also want to share that I hear what you're saying, Councillor Haring, about the fatigue and how council can maybe move in, or the district can move in and just find different release points. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm certainly going to give it a thought. I had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with our healthy living coordinator over the holidays, and cannot wait to rebrand pickleball as the sport for everyone. Has anybody played that? Like, it's freaking amazing. So it's so fun and it's good for everybody. And I think we've really positioned it, you know, for seniors and sort of during the day, etc. But that sport can bring joy, and you do not have to be coordinated. I will attest to that. So lots of good things. So here's hoping for a wonderful 2022. That's it.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah, nothing but gratitude out there in the community for the community Christmas dinner. And well said on everything else. And you'd be surprised to know, Councillor Sim, that I actually own my own pickleball paddle.
No, you can be on my team.
Oh God, no, I'm not that fast. Speaking of uncoordinated. Anyways, thank you for that and all your work over prior to Christmas Eve. And moving on to Councillor Taylor.
So I'll kind of echo the appreciation for the Christmas dinner and Shelley and her army of volunteers. And I'm fortunate to kind of join that group, and it's such an enjoyable experience to actually go out and spend that time working with other volunteers and pulling together something great for the community. And always great to see Shelley in action and learning from her organizational skills. But yeah, really, really great event. So thank you again for that, Shelley, Councillor Sim. I'll also report that BC Youth Parliament did happen, not in Victoria, over Zoom. So Martha and Noel were pretty much on Zoom from 8 a.m. in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, 5 days for BC Youth Parliament. And so obviously a different environment, slightly different experience, but really great to see. And I could hear the engagement from outside Martha's bedroom every time I walk past, just the engagement in the conversation, the laughter, a really, really great program, and great to have council and the school support for both Noel and Martha to participate in that. I received my booster shot invitation, so I'm assuming others have too. So excited that that's coming to the community soon. And yes, congratulations to the Ski Hill on the opening weekend.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I got my notification. I'm sure people are. Me and my spouse had vaccinations 15 minutes apart in real time, but our notifications came down 5 days different, and mine was in the middle of night last night for booster. So the system is working, sort of. Anyways, no committee of the whole minutes. Moving on to committee of the whole reports. 14.1, Councillor Taylor, Chair of Government Operations Committee.
Excellent. So we're actually going to have a recommendation that council enter a committee of the whole meeting of the Government Operations Standing Committee at this time. So I'll make that recommendation.
Looks like seconded by Councillor Frizzle. All those in favor? There we go.
Excellent. And so the key item on the agenda for this committee of the whole meeting is to go through the finance and audit operating templates. So they are the attachments listed below. Does anyone from staff want to speak to this before we hand it over to council for any questions?
Yes. As council is aware, our director of finance has departed, sadly. We have Doug with us, our interim director of finance, who is working on getting up to speed on the operating templates, and we are working quite hard to get all the capital templates completed this week, so he can also complete the budgeting process for our January 18th meeting or before. The operating template is a first draft for what we are presenting for 2022. We have up until May to have the budget adopted, and I presume, especially with the assessment that we have received. There will be lots of revisions and edits and considerations given. Doug, is there any contribution you'd like to speak to, or do you want me to sort of?
Maybe just introduce yourself as well. Doug will take that opportunity and tell us, I believe you're from, is it the island or not the island?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council and staff, I retired 2 years ago, and after about a month of being retired, became board. I spent 37 years in local government as a CAO and CFO, and sometimes both. I was pleased to be selected by John to help out in the interim, and I'm happy to do that. I know there's a lot of concern about the increase of assessed values. However, I think it needs to be pointed out that the amount of taxes people are going to pay will depend specifically and directly upon the level of budget required for the district. It's a seesaw. If the rate assessments are high, the tax rates can be low. If the assessments are low, the tax rates can be high. But what's driving it is that bottom right-hand corner as to what the taxes are required. So I know there's probably a lot of concern in the community, and I think it's a fair response for council to say we're going to work hard on the budget to keep the taxation to a minimum, and it will depend on what you pass for a tax for a financial plan and what the tax levy is going to be.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anything further to add to that, Mr. Thomas, or? No?
Not to what Doug is saying, but with respect to the operating templates, yes.
Yeah, I found two useful things online. One I shared with council, which is Mayor Richard Stewart of Coquitlam does a really nice breakdown on mill rates on his Facebook page. So if you look up his thing, and then actually there's a video from that somebody just sent to me from BC Assessment, of all logical places, from 5 years ago, that uses a really good breakdown of three houses in a fictional community with $100,000 initial values, and shows what happens to mill rates and tax rates, etc., as things go up and down. Councillor Sim, you have a thought on that as well?
I really appreciate all that information, and Doug, that was a very succinct explanation, and that was easy to understand.
Yeah.
What I am also wanting to clarify is, I believe, has the time period for a dispute of assessments passed, or is that
No.
January 31st?
You are absolutely correct. Thank you for the highlight there. It is January 31st. If somebody feels that their assessment is unfair, they can, or they need it checked on, they can do that through BC Assessment website, I believe is where you start. And I have a feeling that it's going to be a very large process this year, considering what's happened. I believe somebody told me that Ashcroft house rates were going up $8,000 a month. In value. So it's quite concerning out there in the world. But yes, it does not affect how much taxes you pay. In the end, that will be determined by budget and what we require. But I don't want to get into that too much, because it's a very complicated process.
It is complicated, but it is
Yep.
certainly to stress that people have this window of opportunity, and not to look to the District of Clearwater to
Yep.
be making that advocacy call if that's how our citizens are feeling.
Yeah, and it's a 30% increase in assessment is not a 30% increase in taxation. It's not the same thing. So just be calm, carry on, and when we get our budget and everything worked out, we will let you know what the changes are, but they're not the same thing. Okay, moving on. Councillor, question, Councillor Haring.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the documents that we have. I was just confused about why there's two Schedule A's with different numbers of surplus deficit. What is going on there? So sorry, that's page 27 and 28.
John, Mr. Thomas, did you want to speak to that, or?
I'm looking at that as well. I'm not sure why. We will certainly take that back and consider it.
So one is marked as no COVID and one is marked as with COVID. And I wondered if it was with the COVID relief fund being brought into the budget, because the one with COVID is a lower overall budget, and it may be that we're offsetting some of the COVID relief funds to cover some of the deficit there.
That rings true from our discussion in the workshop. I certainly recall Roxanne presenting two concepts: what the numbers would look like without the COVID relief fund being applied, and an alternative one with the COVID relief fund applied.
Yeah, so that would be my best guess, Councillor Haring, but let's confirm that, Mr. Thomas, if we can.
I will, for sure.
Thank you.
I wouldn't be able to provide a response at this moment, sadly, because of the changeover, but for sure we will certainly look at that. But I would like to. I would like to go through all the different templates with the respective staff members to provide council with the justification for the numbers that are presented. The numbers that are presented are driven based on the projects and the programs that the admin is proposing in the first draft, which will be curtailed or amended as we go along in the budget process. If council is okay with that.
So are there significant changes from when we went through them in the workshop?
Not at all.
But you'd still like to discuss them in this meeting, is that?
Just because the public has not had an opportunity to receive them.
Okay.
But it's up to council.
Yes, definitely. I think it's really important that we report out. Thank you.
I agree.
Okay. Beginning with the legislative administration human resources election template, which is number 1 listed for 2022. I'm not going to go over the 2021 accomplishments. I'm going to focus on the proposed plan. So the annual report, which is due come June of this year, work will begin on that quite shortly. Record management, the district has had record management as a to-do item for quite some time. And the challenges associated with that has certainly come to the forefront, and addressing that is a priority. Though with the overall budget, wherever it may fall, this can be delayed if necessary. Technology, complete organization of iCompass. So that's something we're working on internally with the managers. Update council chamber audiovisual. We're hoping to use some COVID funds to achieve that as well. Implement a key box system. A digital key box system would allow for automated tracking of keys that the district has in its possession. It would allow for members of staff to enter a specific code assigned to them, and they can remove and return keys as is necessary for operational purposes. Currently, our key box system is quite decentralized and is concerning. We have keys stored in various places, including envelopes, including master keys, and it is my opinion that that presents a risk to the organization. Promotion, update promotional video for the District of Clearwater. This is something that council identified as a priority in the last quarter of 2021. From a human resources LR perspective, there's an effort on the way to work with QP 900 to develop and sign a letter of understanding to address some of the multi-classification issues in Schedule A of the collective agreement, as well as updating all the job descriptions to make sure, and organizational chart to make sure everyone understands their role, their function, and how it fits in the overall organization. The Fit for Work policy, this is something that has been on the docket in 2021, and it was sent back to the administration for additional work. Do you want to speak, Mayor? Okay. And this is proposed to be brought back and acted upon in 2022. Procure and implement an HR software to address across the District of Clearwater to complete the integration of our work with the union and making sure our documents are in place for HR processes. Public policy, create a new purchasing policy, complete with procedures and training for managers. This is on the agenda for today as for council to consider. Cemetery bylaw, the cemetery committee has been struck, members have been appointed, and the committee is going to be meeting this month to start the work on this process. Update the flag policy to incorporate new statutory holidays, specifically recognizing the Truth and Reconciliation holiday on September 30th, among some other changes that are required within. Develop several policies related to trails maintenance standards. So this really ties into the decision from Nelson that went before the courts about responsibility, risk, and liability. 2022 municipal elections. So the election is scheduled for October. Inauguration of council and the new strategic plan review or priority setting exercise for council in the fall. As for staffing, no staff changes are being proposed. The overall budget variance is $8,242 less than 2021. And that's it for general government services. I will speak to the finance piece as well, if Doug, you're okay with that. Cool.
That sounds good. Thanks.
2022, the SOFI reports and the financial audit. The audit process is currently underway. Financial planning, continue working on asset management obligations. So the retirement obligations requirements are coming into play quite soon, and we need to begin the process of preparing for that work. Begin work on long-term asset management financial plan. Implement fixed asset module in Amaze. Install and implement digital purchase order in Amaze. Digital purchase order would be very helpful for the organization in many ways to increase transparency, accountability, among others. Work to develop a matrix for assessing grant application to make sure there's a net benefit to the district to applying for the grant rather than just applying for grants as they come forward. Public policy, update the tangible capital asset policy, which really guides and impacts budgeting as well, because it dictates what is classified as a capital asset or what needs to be moved over to operating budget estimates. And begin the process of creating a consolidated municipal fees bylaw with appropriate schedules to aid in financial planning. So that basically takes all the bylaws into consideration that has fees embedded within, scrub them from those respective bylaws, put them in one bylaw with various schedules, and that would allow council and staff to effectively have a much more expedient process for updating those fees and understanding how those changes would impact our finances. For this specific area of the budget, we're looking at no staff changes, which resulted in a $59,385 less budget variance than 2021. Building planning development and building inspection and economic development. The focus for 2022, public policy review, development bylaws as a group. So there are many things, including the OCP, not an in-depth review necessarily and proposing massive changes, but reviewing to make sure that there are alignments or where there are issues to bring them forward for councils to consider. There are about 5 different bylaws that will fall part of that group. Complete the infrastructure master plan update, which will be another item council will be contending with in the July 18th meeting. Develop and update water conservation plan, which is a requirement for grant applications, but it's also something we've been discussing internally on the approach to getting an update completed. HR, complete staffing and onboarding of a new economic development officer. So we have made an appointment. An announcement will be going out this week on that. The person is moving down from the Yukon, and we'll go from there. More will come out in the announcement. Plans, work to implement community economic development plan and strategies and priorities of council, and work to process current subdivision application. We have about 6 open applications that are in various stages of the process, and we're just working to get that completed as soon as possible. We don't have Roger with us today, but I believe Brent, can you speak to the Centennial Building and Dutch Lake Community Center aspect, please?
Yes, yes, I can. Just let me pull it up here. Centennial Building. Do you want me to announce the proposed budgets, John?
The objectives for 2022 and the budget variance.
Okay, the objectives for 2022. Prepare and complete tender process for propane supply. Pay down debt where possible to avoid higher interest rates. Is the overall goal of the buildings in Dutch Lake Community Center. Specifically to the Dutch Lake Community Center, continue preventative maintenance program with the building and the equipment used therein. Conduct renovations to the interior and exterior of the building to extend the lifespan, and complete duct cleaning within the DLCC. And then new infrastructure proposed is to have a gymnasium accessibility ramp be installed. Within the Centennial Hall building, it's suggested to have preventative maintenance program, including renovations to the interior and exterior of the building to, again, prolong the lifespan of the building.
Thank you. Fire service, Mike Smith.
Question? Sorry, before we proceed, I just want to go to the facilities, and I just want to go to the Centennial. So we've got stats for 2017, 18, 19, 20. And I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading in 2021. But it seems that our custodial costs, almost doubled. Is that anticipated to remain for 2021?
Likely, yes. The custodial staff cost increases directly related to COVID protocols. And
so using that Schedule A, that would be where something we would look at, using those COVID funds. Is that correct?
That's correct. In the budget process, developing the operating templates, we looked quite closely at every possible cost center and try to ascribe as much to the COVID relief fund as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. So for fire services, objectives for 2022, purchase more turnout gear, complete their structure protection trailer, start planning for the 2023, our frontline fire truck replacement. We continue to recruit and retain additional firefighters. Develop a critical incident stress management policy. Finalize our fuel management 2020 grant and work on the 2021 fuel management grant. And try to apply for the next round, probably in October. The past one's timing is the same as what the future will be. Sorry, the words there. False alarm bylaw, we want to create one of those and pass that. And I think some of the stuff that went over this year was the wages, just due to more calls and more training being done for call-outs. And then an additional cell phone for our social media person. So that's fire services. Should I continue to protective?
Please do.
So for this year, we'll finalize our UBCM EOC grant. A couple things to finish up with there. We're going to do the emergency measures bylaw and the response and evacuation plan update through that project charter that we developed. A policy for fire equipment rental rates should they need to go out to the province for firefighting season or be asked of. Municipal ticketing bylaw amendment to align with the fire department's new bylaw from last year. Evacuation zone mapping with the TNRD's GIS department that we started. Continue with that. Review the OHS policy and program. Hopefully be doing something for Emergency Preparedness Week in May. And that's it for there.
Question on that, please.
Sure.
Can you just tell me again where the communications wage was paid out of? What line item are we looking at for that? Is that wages and starters benefits or other operating?
In general or for fire department?
Well, I
stuff?
thought what I heard Chief Smith say is that there was a slight increase and that was due to having the communications assist with that. And I just didn't catch that whole.
Oh, the cell phone.
Oh, the cell phone.
A little bit extra in a cell phone. We got a second cell phone for the fire department for being on the fire truck or being with Ms. Poisson, who does our social media and communications part of it. Just the cell phone was not wages.
Oh, okay. But that raises an interesting point. The media that she does for that, does that come under, is any part of that position come under the fire department, or is that all being allocated in the legislative services and as reported out in the previous templates?
I believe it's all housed under legislative services as a contract. And one of those line items designated for contract services.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And for the other protective services, the total budget variance is $3,896 compared to 2021. Administration, road, dikes, fleet and equipment, weed control and street lighting, Mr. Schofield.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas. Okay, 2022 objectives. obtain and implement an asset management plan that uses GIS for the district. This will allow tracking, maintenance, and strategic planning going forward. Identify a 2-year road maintenance priorities list with maintenance and budgeting baseline. Obtain and implement a crack sealing program that includes a tool machine that would be in-house. Install streetlights in John Foster cul-de-sac. Complete a detailed dike maintenance and remove excess vegetation within 2 meters of the dike. And that is as per requirements for dike maintenance and ongoing service. Facilitate Trans Mountain pipeline activities within the district. Expand the public works yard and improve yard maintenance or drainage, sorry. Improve public works drainage. And then sell and replace the existing, sell the existing backhoe and replace it with a new one. Define and implement a fleet maintenance program. Purchase another vehicle for additional staff. Purchase a jumping jack compactor for public works duties, which currently, when that's required, we have to pay a rental fee. And for the administration is update safety plan, complete a public works inventory, cross-train and certify staff for water and sewer duties, and then lay the foundation for road maintenance contract tendering in 2023.
Thank you. And the variance for that compared to 2021 is $61,188 increase.
And that increase would include the purchasing of the new items that was just suggested, is that right? So that's the payment on an annual basis?
That depends. So if it's a capital item, it will not be reflected in those numbers because the capital items will be brought forward on the January 18th meeting. So for example, the backhoe is not, which will be a capital item, is not reflected there. Those are just the operating template and the scope of what we're hoping to achieve in 2021.
Okay, and just on the issue of streetlights, several months ago, I think BC Hydro up Clearwater Valley Road had put in 5 sample lights of what we're choosing, and I think we've still got 5 sample lights. And I'm just wondering if anything has changed with that, if we've landed on, you know, a selection for our sconces, or what we've done, or if there was feedback on that, and if there was any savings by making some modification based on those examples.
It's the first time hearing of the 5 sample lights, but I will certainly look into that.
It was 4, and I think all of us as council members were supposed to go out and pick our favorite one and get back to somebody, and I don't believe any of us actually did that. So which one did you like, Councillor Sim? It's each north, south, east, west corner or southeast corner. Well, I think it's time to go for a drive. I believe it's a Hydro Road corner.
Yeah, it's just at the Hydro Road one, and it's super interesting. And I think it'll be, everybody needs to have an opinion based on if you like bright light, if you like soft light, and what your expectations are. But certainly making a decision, noting that the changes for John Foster and their letter of inquiry. So yeah, there's a selection on show.
Sounds like a good, safe, socially distanced individual trip for all council members to pull off at this particular
What
in
would
the near
be
future.
helpful is if we went out and actually labeled it A, B, C, D, E, F, so you could come back and say, I like the bright shiny one, because that's not going to be helpful. So
I think that's an appropriate measure, and I hear Mr. Schofield laughing there. I think we can assign that task to him. I think a little bit of masking tape and Sharpie will do the trick.
We will take care of that. Thank you.
Accepted.
Okay, septage and cemetery services. The septage receiving station has been extremely busy. So proposed a scope change that for an existing application that was already accepted. We're in final discussions on that scope change, which does not affect the dollar amount. It's just what we're doing with the dollars. So we'd like to complete that in cell 1 phase 2, improve lagoon security by installing cameras and code access, complete the connection of Park Drive, Raft River, Eden Road, Clearview Road lift stations to the virtual SCADA system, fencing, install fencing completely around the lagoons, install a catwalk at the quote red box. So Public Works, it's for our treatment process, it's a red container, red box, and install a catwalk, which we were given from Canfor. So we just need to get it welded on next year. And investigate the possibility of increasing the tank capacity at the septage receiving station. And then in the cemetery, we'd like to continue on with replacing, for lack of a proper name, zone markers that are currently in place. They're wooden right now, but they're giving into weather and age. So a few years ago, the high school students in the metal shop fabricated 6 that are now in place. And so we'd like to continue on and replace all of the wooden posts with metal ones. Install flowers under the sign. The sign post in the area has been worked on thus far, and finish that. Construct and install additional metal markers, as mentioned. And general maintenance, there's areas specifically in the back section, or what has been termed the original cemetery section, where because there wasn't proper compaction among some other situations, that some of the surface ground has started to settle. So over the last year, our public works staff have gone in and placed soil underneath the surface stonework that's there to level it out. So we'd like to continue on that, as well as beautify the cemetery with shrubs and level grass and plots and that, and then repair some of the perimeter fence. Some of the fence has been damaged over time, so repair that. And that total variance is an increase of 12,363 on the cemetery portion only.
Thank you. On to transit. We're not anticipating much by the way of new projects or scope for 2022. Bus shelter maintenance is an ongoing process. Increased ridership, hopefully, by increasing awareness of the service throughout the valley. And we're anticipating a budget variance of that, an increase of $2,279 compared to 2021. Community recreation and healthy living and events program. So for 2022, the plans include create an incentive plan to attract new program facilitators to promote diversity and relieve financial barriers, explore potential plans that capitalizes on space and opportunities to allow for self-sustaining income generator that enhances health, well-being, and livelihood of community members. For facilities, paint and furnish a wellness studio, which is being created in the old or former council chamber in the Centennial Hall. Programming, collaborate with local professionals on health promotion matters to allow for engaging knowledge translation, within various groups and demographics, reestablish and enhance community engagement through community-focused events outside of given holidays. For HR, we're looking at reformat the community recreation and healthy living program into a recreation coordinate culture and event department within the district. We're not anticipating any change in the overall staffing portfolio from an FTE point of view. However, we are looking at restructuring some of those positions accordingly. The overall budget variance is $12,573 is what is being proposed. North Thompson Sportsplex, Brent. You're muted.
Thank you. 2022 goals and objectives, operational, continue to assist groups in growing their enrollment, different sports camps and that. Continue promoting activities to support sports tourism, and continue a preventative maintenance program with building and equipment. Staff, purchase staff apparel for hockey school, develop and implement succession planning for department leadership. On the community, purchase of jerseys for all players at the hockey school. Leaves the participants with something to remember it by. And for capital is roof repairs and research facility expansion opportunities for additional revenue and other times. And that would be a budget increase from 21-22 of $20,033 plus. So an additional 20,000. I'd like me to continue with parks. 2022 objectives and plans for parks is maintenance, replace picnic tables at various parks, and install additional bear-proof garbage cans at some other areas. There was 5 placed this year. We'd like to place another 5 in other areas. Capital, Parks Master Plan, tender a parks contract, construction of a gazebo at the Splash Park to allow for birthdays for the little ones, among other things. And then the completion of the 37 East property design, tender, and build. And that would be great if we could do that in 2022. And that is a total variance of 18,673 in the positive. Water services. Okay, water services. 2022 goals and objectives. Operations, install a bulk water self hookup to service Trans Mountain and private tourists with RVs. Complete a leak assessment of water system district wide. Identify the areas that are leaking and fix them, or develop a program to have them fixed within a couple of years. Bring well 2 online through reacquiring a manganese tester, water analysis, and storage vessel to increase contact time specific to chlorine. And connect all pump stations to the virtual SCADA system. Maintenance, perform maintenance on the Swanson Road, Clearwater Station Road, Harvey Road, Dutch Lake Well 3 pressure reducing valves and stations. General vegetation management for non-permit required, and this is in our intake. Water area it's getting overgrown, so we'd like to remove some of the vegetation that will reduce some of our BOD levels, and clean the filter screens at the water intake. We're proposing to do all work that does not need a permit. If it requires a permit, then we would file for a proper permit. Update the O&M manual for the water system, and update the emergency response plans for the water system, and complete a water conservation plan. And total variance, I don't have a number, so I would assume it's equal to.
We will do the calculation and explain that later on for sure.
Okay.
Right. Is that Mr. Thomas, because it's paid for, it's not paid for through taxation, paid for through user fees? Is that why it doesn't show?
The variance should show regardless
Okay.
of the source of revenue. The distinction later on in the overall budget is whether it's paid by fees, whether it's paid by taxes or reserve funds, etc.
Okay, thank you.
So that seems like an oversight on our part. I apologize.
Okay, moving on to wastewater. Objectives, sewer treatment, maintenance of the sewer pumps at the lagoon, remove vegetation in and around the RIB or the rapid infiltration beds, and that the RIBs is how we finally disperse and get rid of the treated effluent. Install catwalk around the processing bin for work safety. Operations, Clearwater Station, sewer siphon inspection and maintenance, and looking forward to an alternate solution. Connect all sewer lift stations and processing mechanics to the virtual SCADA, and increase the septage receiving tank capacity from approximately 4,000 imperial gallons to 6,000 imperial. And then human resource side is have a certified operator level 3, which we now have, who started work on the 22nd of December, and cross-train operators in water and sewer operations. And for a total variance, we'll do the calculations and get back on that as well.
Overall, the operating template is quite focused on addressing some of the internal projects and processes that has been on the way for some time. Heavy on the HR piece, training development, very heavy on the water system, SCADA. Our SCADA system has been transitioned to the virtual online, but there's a lot more additional work that is required in some areas there. We ran into some challenges in 2021, and as well some of the projects that could not have been done in 2021 that is being forwarded to 2022. That's the operating template. The capital templates and business cases will be brought forward, and that would provide council with the overall picture of both operating and capital, from which the discussion on fees, taxes, etc. can commence.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas and staff. Do any councillors have any further questions at this time? Or otherwise, as Mr. Thomas said, there'll be opportunity for further discussion once we have the bigger picture with capital as well. Councillor Sim?
Yeah, and I'm not sure, I just want to, because under economic development, we had the 0.4, which would be for the sports coordinator position. But I also note that under the recreation, we've also got a 0.4 or maybe it's under healthy living to assist with events, etc. Are they two different 0.4 positions, or they will be rolled into one?
Just one, yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good catch. I thought I was seeing double there. Anyways, excellent reports, and very easy to digest and read. Thank you for that. That is my comment.
Okay, so if there's no other questions from council, I believe we now move to the recommendation that council rise from the committee of the whole. So I'll make that recommendation if I can get someone to second that.
Second by Councillor Haring.
Oh, I'm sorry, the one picture I don't have on my screen right now.
There you go.
All those in favor?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I guess I take it back here and we go to standing committee reports. Joint Services Advisory Committee, Councillor Haring.
Sorry, I'm just catching up on my agenda here, flipping back through all the pages. Our next meeting is the 10th.
And I believe we have an agenda setting coming up for that, or there's the request for items to be on that agenda. I'm just going to preemptively say that we'll probably have a discussion on TELUS service in the region as one of the items for that meeting. Select committee reports, Trails Task Force, Councillor Taylor.
So we have a meeting scheduled for this evening. Mr. Thomas, is that still going ahead as far as you're aware? Okay.
Yes, it is being moved virtually, and we will be having true consultant participating as well.
Perfect. So we'll be meeting this evening at 6:30.
Excellent. Recruitment and Retention Committee, Councillor Banford is away today. That moves to Economic Development Task Force, Councillor Frizzle.
To be determined yet.
Thanks. And the Cemetery Advisory Committee, and once again, Councillor Banford is away, but it's excellent to see in the report, Mr. Schofield, that stuff is already being thought about and taken care of on that. Is a very sensitive issue with the community. That's great. Moving on to committee representation reports, Tourism Wells Grey, Councillor Sim.
I believe there's a meeting tomorrow.
Okay. We have not had anything on the Wells Grey Community Forest Commission. So moving on to item 18, staff reports. There is
Just a sec. I have a question. So with all these the different formats that we've created for different committees, where do those go now?
Sorry, which other format are you referring to?
So we changed our committee structure, but I don't see them all on here. So how does that work?
So there was a separate document presented to council that listed all the committee meetings date. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, sort of. I think that we renamed some of them. The only one I know is thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you for helping me.
I'm just gonna jump in. I think the committees of the whole only make it onto the agenda when there's a specific item, like we just did the government one, and then it will come in as a section of the meeting, as opposed to having a report out like the select committees.
That's correct. Unless there's a separate standalone
workshop or something.
Committee meeting that was held. For example, let's say today council held the Government Operations Committee at 1 p.m. That would be a report in a separate location on the agenda.
So just for the public, and I think also myself, then how does that happen? So before, the public would know when the various things, now nobody knows. So how did today's agenda, or how did that get onto the agenda? Is that because staff brought it forward? Like, how did it make it there?
How did what make what where?
So we just went through government operations.
Correct.
So how did that get there versus some of the other ones?
So the standing committee meeting schedule was released in December, identifying a meeting on January 4th within the regular council meeting.
Okay, and then the standing committee on that same sheet of paper listed some other dates of proposed meetings. Is that right?
I believe so, for the entire year.
Okay, so what I am wondering is if there's a way to incorporate that more readily for the public, because for a while, since we've been incorporated, they have seen the dates on all the meetings. Okay. So I think that as we make this transition, we help the public transition as well to see when things are coming up. I may be alone in that. Good. But yeah, otherwise it looks like it's disappeared, in my opinion.
Yep, I don't see a. Yeah,
we'll add it to perhaps a CR report. All the committee meetings scheduled.
What a great idea! I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, that is an excellent suggestion, Councillor Sim, that we just added as a tag on sort of memory sheet to the end of the regular the CAO report for the next while till we all get used to this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. Are there any questions on the CAO report? Once again, a lot going on there, and busy, chaotic times. Thank you for your work, Mr. Thomas, and hopefully you got a little bit of a mental health break over Christmas.
There is one addition that I had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting.
Yep.
From MIABC. We've got our rates for coverage confirmed for 2022. We're looking at a total increase of $84,600. A total cost of $84,623. And that's broken out into property crime at $71,307, equipment breakdown $6,447, accidental death and dismemberment $836, cyber liability $5,080, legal expense $953. I will say we're still working on finalizing some cybersecurity requirements for insurance programs, and we have a deadline of January, the end of January to do that. I believe it's 31st of January, which represents a 6.6% increase year over year.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any questions on any of that? I know that the report is in your email because it was a late item. But yes, I think even at 6.6 year over year, considering what's gone on in the world, it's probably not that shocking. I'm not seeing any questions, so moving on, moving to item 18.2, the firefighter recruitment results. That's in your package. The survey results are there. Mr. Smith, would you like to speak to anything on that?
Yes, so we got a bunch of results. A lot of it came down to explaining the expectations, commitment level, and training. Didn't seem to be out there too much, and a lot of the responses were people had too many other responsibilities, and their time commitment was being utilized in other locations of their life. Mm-hmm. Or age and physical ability was one of the ones as well. So we're going to further break these down, discuss them internally, and see what our next round of messaging needs to be, and how we need to promote our presence out into the community.
Okay, Councillor Taylor has a question.
Well, not really a question, just a comment, observation. I think there were some suggestions as well around kind of how youth can become involved, and so kind of targeting the last couple of years of high school and before they get all those family commitments and before they get backache and all the physical limitations of us old folks. That'd be kind of great if we can kind of get some late teen, early 20s involved in the volunteer firefighters.
Yes, I definitely agree there, Councillor Taylor. We've talked about a youth program for a number of years lately, and I think now is the time we need to implement it, speaking with principal of the high school and seeing what his vision for that would be, and if it would tie into some sort of community time that they would get towards their credits or something like that. Maybe it would incentivize them to actually show up and participate, which would be nice. So yeah, and then maybe from there a parent or an uncle or someone like that might come around as well too, right?
Anything including surveys creates awareness and starts a conversation. It's all learning experience, and it's all, in a sense, advertising for the system. And remembering back to the wildland firefighters that used to train in North Thompson Park that were part of the high school system, that was a massive success, recruiting a lot of people into the Ministry of Forest for initial attack and developed actually crews that were completely from Clearwater for that, and it's a shame that it went away. So yeah, I think that's a great idea if there's a workable way to make that work. Any further comments or questions from staff for Mr. Smith? If not, thank you for your report, and moving on, and surveys are always fun. Moving on to the draft purchasing policy. Anything from staff to speak on this? We've talked about this before, but there is a recommendation as well. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, this is a draft that has been prepared as per the report. Having had further internal, excuse me, discussion with staff directors, the page 89, the table that deals with purchasing limits and process requirements. There was a suggestion that the limit for best price effort might be too low, simply because when you take into consideration the overall value of a purchase, including transportation costs to the District of Clearwater, the effective limit of the purchase is like $4,000 or less. And that may really hamstring the operations of the municipality. So there was an internal discussion of perhaps increasing that to about between $1,000 and $10,000, all subject to council, of course.
Yeah, thank you for that. That seems to make sense. We don't always factor everything in. Is there any further comments from or questions on this? Councillor Sim, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I also just want to know, because expediency is kind of a two-way street, and I really like the idea of, you know, having a bit more flexibility. So I appreciate that oversight. But I also want to just check in and see. So, for example, if you know, if there's a truck that's being put in for maintenance or something, is there a threshold where you have to go back and forth, or how does that weigh out? Like at what point does it move seamlessly along? So if it's a $20 part, does the shop have to go back to somebody and say, can we get approval for this? Or is there also something in place that anything up to $200 that would lend to better maintenance of, you know, capital asset could go forward? Where are we at that?
So it's not, it really depends on the overall value of the project or the purchase. If it is over in the draft policy $5,000, then it hits a totally different requirements for effecting the purchase. And a good example of that would be the backhoe repairs that we went through in 2021, where there was an initial budget set. It went out for maintenance. We didn't have the additional resources committed in the budget, and so staff prepared reports and came back for further authorization. So there is still the checks and balances in there. But I do take a point that perhaps there could be a statement included in the document that allows for that intent.
Yeah, just to help staff, and again, to keep the wheels moving on the bus. And I would even wonder if that 5,000, although it's very prudent, is it too prudent given that costs for everything seem to be so high? I wondered if staff had considered going even up to $8,000 or $10,000.
That would be welcomed by staff.
Yeah, I would support that. I support a higher limit on that, and I think staff can come back and suggest what that be, but I think $5,000 is a little bit low, especially when we see the prices. We're working on sort of semi, you know, commercial industrial things, projects here, not fixing my Honda Civic. So yeah, I 100% agree with that, Councillor Sim. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. Okay, moving on. So there is a recommendation. The council confirms the draft policy is being ready to be referred to legal review, and the policy be brought back to council for consideration for January 18th, 2022 regular council meeting, with the thoughts that we've discussed here added to the draft. Can I get a mover on that and a seconder if that's so desired? Thank you, Councillor Frizzle, for moving, seconded by Councillor Haring. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. April 5th council meeting. This is a conflict with court services. So there is a recommendation that council will conduct the April 5th, 2022 meeting from the Dutch Lake Community Center multi-purpose room at the regular time, and the staff are directed to advertise this change and note the meeting will not be available electronically for that date. Any questions or comments? If not, oh, Councillor Taylor.
My question would be, if we are still needing to hold it remotely, obviously we won't need technology in the room for us all to be like we are today. So I'm assuming that if that's the case, we'll all be remote, versus just recognizing that saying it will not be available electronically is assuming we're actually back to some form of in-person by that point.
Yes.
I mean, we hope we are by April, but we could be back and then out again and then back again.
We by April we'll be at 2 years and 1 month of active action against the COVID pandemic. So all bets are off, but yes, I think we are nimble at this point. So thank you for that comment. Can I get a mover and a seconder on that, please? Or did we do that already? Never mind. Moved by Councillor Taylor. Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. All those in favor? Thank you. And interim director of finance, there's a recommendation that Douglas Chaplin be appointed as interim director of finance until further resolution of council, and that Roxanne Shepherd be removed from signing authority. Moved by Councillor Haring, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? Yeah, thank you for coming on board, Mr. Chapman. That's excellent. Item 18.6, Winterfest. There is a staff report. Page 107, 108. Questions of staff on this? Councillor Haring, start away.
It's not so much a question of staff. It's just, I'm looking at this, and with today's COVID situation and all of this, is it wise to put resources towards something this near in the future right now? Just a thought.
I'll let Councillor Sim go first, but go right ahead.
Yeah, I think that moving forward, I think that everything that is coming out of all the epidemiology and all of it is that COVID's going to be with us for a long time. And so we need to find ways to work within it. The good thing about Winterfest is it does mean outside. Thank God we have a ski hill. We've got cross-country trails. We do have, skating. I think that maybe it's not the same format. Like we can't have a pickleball tournament yet, but we could find things and adapt. And for all the reasons that were mentioned earlier, is that community fatigue is there. These types of things provide that lift. And I think we just have to really put our mind to how do we work knowing that this is with us and is the dark shadow. We need some sunshine.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I think any which way we can go forward. Obviously, everything that we do at this point is penciled in versus marked in stone or even Sharpie. But yes, anything that we can do, I think outside social distance, even if it's here's the notice of what we'd like you to do, please keep your distance and go have fun. Everything's needed. The world's in a funk right now, and anything that we can do as leaders, we can lead by example on responsible management of COVID with our staff, or Mr. Thomas can with his staff. But we also have to lead in the community and lifting people up as well where we can safely. Councillor Sim, continue.
I think that there's also ways that we can use this festival to celebrate the great things we do have. Like I would love something like a big mural where people can come and have stickies of their favorite winter memory, favorite winter spot or anything, but a way to connect people that we keep on that positive vibe. And I think it also really helps the new people to the community, to remind them that we have a memory of some great things in our community. So I'm running the flag for finding all sorts of ways to create positive energy.
Councillor Taylor.
In the staff report, it says there's no financial impact. Is the intent just to that it's like a use of staff time but no budget assigned for the Winterfest? Is that typical of Winterfest?
It's the concern is more about the COVID-19 impact, and the district putting on an event that could be a source of spread, and the sensitivities around that.
Yeah, fair enough. And once again, pencil life in. Councillor Haring, did you want to add more to that? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think my concern is, more that holding an event right now and the optics of it, even outside, versus the restrictions that are being placed on some of the businesses around town. I guess I'm just very wary of that, watching things going on in the media for the rest of the province, like why are hockey games allowed and not gyms, for example? Well, why are community events allowed, but we still have to do takeaway for unvaccinated people? All those kind of things are, just a potential risk. I'm not necessarily against doing the event. I just think we have to be aware that the public may perceive this differently should restrictions continue to increase.
Sorry, yes, excellent. I would agree with that. Councillor Sim, do you want to go forward again?
Yeah, and I think that to have a festival environment that attracts people is unwise. I think if we have a winter fest, we don't have to define it for group gathering. There's other ways to do it. So for example, maybe find a way to get involved with the literacy coordinator, maybe doing an outdoor story walk, maybe doing, a speaker series on Zoom, but change how we define what a festival is so it becomes inclusive, still gives us something to celebrate, but it doesn't mean that we all have to come together in mass numbers. So it identifies exactly what you're saying. We just need to think upside down.
Yeah, fair enough. It's the outdoor photo / activity scavenger hunt, those kind of things where people can still participate in a greater event without being together in that greater event. Excellent points. This is why I love having these discussions, because we get some better ideas and a way to move forward. I think that's it on that, if there's no further comments. So moving on to, there's no bylaws, no correspondence response required. Moving on to correspondence information items. If there's something you wish to speak to, wave your hands frantically. Oh, sorry, Mr. Thomas. Right, we had something extra in there somewhere, did we not?
A resolution.
Right.
I move option 1.
Okay. Seconder? Go ahead, Councillor Frizzle, all those in favor? Okay. Passes. Where are we going here now? So yeah, so correspondence information items. CN Rail. FESBC. North Saanich Council parental leave. May not affect this council, but maybe in some other future council. So interesting conversation. And the final item is Canada Summer Jobs Program. We apply for, I believe, a version of this every single year. So it's a good heads up that now is the time to plan for summer. No notice of motion.
So,
no
sorry, Councillor or Mayor Blackwell, does that mean we are going to still apply? Mr. Thomas, do you need us to do that? A motion for that, or we're just going to do it?
We're going to apply.
Oh,
I believe the application may have already been submitted by Roxanne, but I will verify.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yes. Always good to have summer students. They turn into great human citizens. Well, they did before, but
sometimes they even come back.
Yeah, never mind. Maybe I have a couple around here that should apply. Anyways, moving on to comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public or from the press? Hi, Ms. Nyman, I believe you would like to speak.
Yes, I do. So what I have to say hasn't got anything to do with anything that's been said before now. It is a concern that I've actually had 2 complaints in to the bylaws, the city, and one being earlier in the summer is related to people living in holiday trailers, specifically right next door to where my mom lives. And we're putting up with their living room basically being outside. So anything and everything happens in everyone's living room, and therefore we're right beside their open living room. So that was earlier this summer. That was not resolved. The fellow actually just ended up moving, I think in October sometime. Although there is other people who live in trailers down here in the flats. So the second concern is a dog that runs loose. He's part pit bull. He's not neutered, and he killed my mom's cat. My mom is very elderly and is now entering into dementia. She found the cat. This trauma, if you only knew the depth of how it impacted her, like her condition has changed incredibly from this. I took care of it, the cat, of course, the body. This dog continues to run loose. I've approached the neighbors. I've approached RCMP. They contacted and lodged a complaint with animal control. I spoke to a woman named Pat. I believe she's out of Vernon. The last contact I had with her, she said that SPCA or somebody was coming here. However, I still see the dog. We have 3 other cats. Those cats are now locked in the house. They are not allowed outside. And our cats in the past have enjoyed going in back and forth, inside and outside. This dog continues to roam. And I know now, like, because I can see the prints. At first it happened because our gate was left open, which we often do in the winter because it's too hard to close with the snow. However, now it's open again, so he's freely accessing the yard. I seen after a time that he being the dog came back into the yard and dug through the snow to the location where the cat's body was left. So he knows that he did something and left something there. I don't know if you understand animal behavior, but that's what they do. The fellow who owns that dog is on Weber, and he lives, sadly, he lives in a motorhome kind of thing. And he's, you know, just some of the dynamic of him is alcoholism and mental health. So it's a very sad situation. However, this dog is a part pit bull and it is walking around freely. And he visits next door to us because the man who lives in the holiday trailer, his sister lives next door to us. And it's quite a notorious house. It's the house where the mother was stabbed to death. That's the location here. So people don't see any problem with the dog walking around unattended. And I have done the complaints. Yep. At the bottom of the complaint form, I see where there is a space for the city hall people to fill out your response. I've not received one. I have texted Mike and I've phoned. I have phoned somebody else in City Hall because this is an ongoing situation for us. Yep. And I don't know if it's linked to living in a holiday trailer, but to my understanding, that's a breach of a bylaw here locally. And as well, dogs wandering unattended is also a breach of bylaws. So I would really like to see City Hall, respectfully, I would like to see seriousness taken. This is not just a cat. This has impacted somebody's life. And she's been here and owns this property since the early 70s. So mom has paid taxes here for many years and deserves to feel safe, as well as I deserve to not have to deal with my mom afraid. That's all I have to say on my relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nyman. Yes, you've definitely caught the attention of our CAO, and he is willing to take this under his personal wing and hopefully you can get a response later today or tomorrow for sure. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for presenting today. I know it's a hard thing to do, and I'm terribly sorry about your mother's loss. That's obviously got to be very traumatic. So thank you. Any extra thoughts from council on this, or are we going to leave it there? Okay. Thank you for coming and sitting through the entire meeting, and thank you for what you do. You know, Métis Elder, et cetera, et cetera. It was nice meeting you on September 30th there at the event as well. Thank you. Moving on to the press. Does the press have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to. I know you mentioned earlier in your mayor's report about the phone lines.
Yes.
And whatnot. I did receive a statement from TELUS, so they did reach out to me. It is a very typical statement, like blanket statement, but they did reach out. So that has been updated and posted online.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, thank you. I've actually heard that comment back during the course of this meeting from somebody else as well. And also during the course of the meeting, the TELUS representative that generally council has meetings with or liaises with us has let us at least be known that he is back from holidays. So we'll be reaching out probably tomorrow in order to have a conversation if we can and add to the advocacy on that. It seems MLA Millibar is fired up in a reasonably loud kind of way like he usually is, and hopefully he can get some traction done on this one, as it is more his riding and Ms. Schaefer's area, Director Schaefer's area to represent, but obviously everything that happens around town is of interest and of concern for safety reasons to the District of Clearwater. So thank you for that update. Anything further before we move to in camera?
Just, can I just thank Stephanie for helping us to keep these issues in front of the public and people like TELUS. So thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, for sure. I think the last calendar year, I said this about broadcasters, but the last calendar year has shown the importance of media and quick response, especially on social media. Clearwater does not operate on radio stations and other means like other communities do, television. It really operates around social media and our local newspaper. So yeah, definitely applause on that. Councillor Sim.
And while we have Stephanie in line on purpose, just thanks so much for coming to our community and great work on last week's edition. And I think you've really become someone who the community can trust and rely on to show up and just, you know, make the community look good and report out. So that you have got a hard job and you're doing a great job.
Don't pump her up too much. She might have to move on to somewhere else if she gets too successful. That kind of stuff happens.
She was at the ski hill this weekend. She's staying.
Okay, well, that's good. Yes, quality of life. Thank you. Moving on to, there's a motion to move into in camera under sections 91K of the community charter, discuss matters related to negotiations, related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service that are their preliminary stages and that in the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Haring, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Mr. Thomas, did you want to say something onto that? Do we need to add something to that?
We do need to add something. I'm just pulling up the.
Yes, because the extra for the legalities of the legalities.
Sorry, one sec here.
Yeah, no problem.
C, labor relations and other employee relations matters.
So as with those additions to those who moved and seconded, all those in favor? And we will take a, time is it now? 3:33, see you back at 3:40, if that's reasonable. Okay, through the new link. So everybody has to log off here. We'll see you at 3:40. Thank you, everyone.
That's everyone.